Sofia Segovia, thank you so much for accepting this interview for the Romanian audience. It's a pleasure to have you as our guest.
It's my pleasure. I love to be here, and I love to know that the Murmur of Bees is out in Romanian, and it's very exciting.
It's actually right next to me, and I was going to ask our first question and to start our interview by pointing out how beautiful this cover is. And I was curious, how important is it to you that your books present themselves in this charming way to your audience, to your public?
I think, content is king, right? Of course. But the cover says a lot. And I do think that a beautiful cover with such beautiful colors, so summery, so full of spring too. I really think it's the first hook to catch a reader. And then, of course, the content. But I love this cover. I love the colors. It's the most orangey of all the covers, and I love that. Indeed. I thought it was very attractive.
Yeah.
And so me a little bit with the green.
Absolutely. You are very active, always in close contact with your readers. You answer their questions. You comment on their impressions. On the Goodreads platform, you are always there, always answering, always making yourself present. Does it help you in your activity as a writer?
Well, I think so. I think it's very important to me because first and foremost, I'm a reader. And so I understand, and I will never forget that part of me. It's a big part. And I understand what it is to be on the other side, on the receiving end of a message, a big message that is a novel. And I really think, and maybe it's my philosophy, I'm a communicator. I studied communications, and I really think it's important the emitting end of a message, then the message, and the receiving end of a message. That makes us human, right? That's part of our process. And why not start conversations? Right? There is a big message in this novel, and I love the conversation, and it's a conversation starter. Why not participate in it? And I'm very passionate about this novel, all my novels, and I also am amazed when I talk to readers and discover that it's not me that finishes a novel, it's the reader. And with their interpretation, it shows me how free we are inside our minds, right? So I never want to quit doing that. I get enriched with this ongoing conversation, and I do try to be very present. And I never want to go away. Sometimes, of course, it takes time. And I do have to say, now it's time to write the new novel, right?
I thought you would mention this because every writer, every author, every creator in all sorts of fields sometimes needs this urge, why not, to isolate herself or himself in order to populate her or his inner universe.
Yes, it's. I've noticed this because you know what happened, Marius? It was the pandemic. Okay, when the first translation came out, it was in 2019, and then came the pandemic, and the book in Spanish is 7 years now. It was published, but during the pandemic, I knew that I had to. I felt this calling to give my time, because I knew readers would need to sink into reading again, or those readers that didn't have much time anymore, they would go back to reading, or even new readers would discover reading. And I knew that we needed to feel close to each other. And so I opened up my time, absolutely. And I think the first year of the pandemic, in average, I had one book club a day, even Sundays. And it was part of my pandemic therapy, my motivation to get up every morning and talk to people and feel close to people. And then the second year I did start to say, okay, now I'm cutting down the time I give to the readers, and I just select a few days a month to do this. But it's still very important. I miss it. I do miss it. But I do know I have to do everything else, do what's mine. And what's mine is the writing. And then it's the reader. So first, right now, I'm slowly writing my new novel.
I think in your early days, you also did some ghost writing. Is that correct?
Yeah, before I even knew I could dream of being a novelist. Because
How does it feel to write and to see your writings published under a different name?
Well, it was just a different type of writing. It was a speech writing and presentation writing and that type of thing. Names, my name didn't really matter. I understood that. But then, of course, what happened was it was announced that the world would end in the year 2000.
Right.
And I stopped and I listened to myself. And I listened to this question that came from within. And it was, what have you done? Well, many things. Yeah, that was an easy answer. But no, the most difficult answer was to this question. What have you done that is absolutely yours, that makes you happy and not in relation to anything else, anybody else, that makes you happy? And so I said, you know what? I stopped writing my short stories, and I had. And so I went back to writing my short stories to wanting to write short stories. What came out was a novel, my first novel. But it was because of this. I broke with writing for other people because I said, yeah, it makes me happy. Of course, writing is my thing. But you know what? I discovered this thing. I deserve to do what's mine and what makes me happy. And it was storytelling. And the thing is, I didn't write the short stories that I wrote as a little girl or a very young woman, but I wrote a novel. I dared to do that because I went into a writer's workshop and they asked me, what's your novel about? And I said, oh, so it turns out I can dream on writing a novel. Okay, I like that dream. That's my dream. And that's how it came about. And what I realized is that everything I've done is important. I cannot disavow my past. It took me to this point, right? So I appreciate that, and I don't ever want to do that again.
With the murmur of the bees, you made readers all over the world talk once again about the magical realism, a literary genre that originated and found one of its most prominent expressions in Latin America. Which are the books that you grew up with?
Well, I did grow up reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez's short stories, and they fascinated me because I was very young, and it turned out it made me see that we are never done with short stories. I thought short stories were for little kids, and then I went into his writing, and I loved the short stories, especially. They really, I do think that they made me. But at the same time, I went into writing The Murmur of Bees, and didn't realize that I was going to write a the magical aspect in this historical based novel. It took me by surprise, but I let it. And I think that's when I think magical realism cannot be planned. That's what I think, right? If I had planned it, it would not have turned out okay. It would have been contrived. And it wasn't. It wasn't because I said, okay, Simonopio, do your thing. That's the character that I discovered at the beginning of the novel. And what I said is, I will let you guide me. I will let you let me see where we're going. And the thing is, I think maybe it's a whole Latin American thing. I'm not sure. I've only lived in Mexico, in Latin America, only in Mexico. But I do think that sometimes reality is more magical than imagination. And that's why it comes so natural. And what I thought is, look, this is nature speaking. And nature really, really is magical, I think. The more we discover scientifically, the more surprised we are by nature.
You know, this would have been my next question, actually, because I was very curious, and since I am somebody who discovered magical realism through Gabriel Garcia Marquez, of course, I was very curious, and I was planning to ask you that. Why do you think that Latin America, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, Peru makes the cradle of this hypnotical mixture between fantasy and reality?
Well, I really think that if you look closely to our histories, you can tell, especially here in Mexico, that's what I can talk about in this novel. For example, the real reason a whole region changed its crops, it was because a president said, you know what? I have a farm with little orange trees, and so I'm going to protect myself and say that if they want to take away the land from all the share that the landowners, they cannot take away land with fruit trees because I have fruit trees. I think that's pretty much out there, a little kind of fantastic world where you can build the reality around you. And we are full of these little kinds of stories where government can change the destiny of a whole people because it's convenient to one person, right? I think it starts with being a bit sarcastic about it and saying, oh, it's magical. Yeah. And what I did here was say, you know what? This is history, but I am a novelist, and I can, we have an expression in Spanish that we say, if we don't like it, we put flowers on it. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't like that. And I put flowers on it, literally, through fiction, right? And I said, you know what, presidents of the past, it's not you who decided this destiny for this land. It's the bees and the flowers. And so I literally went ahead and used this expression to build a novel where everything became more beautiful. And it became like a destiny that was meant to be, not because of one man, but because of nature, right?
And the world you depict in your novel, The Murmur of the Bees, is indeed intoxicating, is full of saturated colors and also full of overwhelming emotions. How do you remain the master of your own writings? I mean, do they come to possess you at a certain point?
Yes, at a certain point.
I was hoping for you to answer that.
But I do realize at the same time, I never leave my strategy behind, of course. It just, but at the same time, I do recognize that I'm a writer that writes with the gut. I believe in the gut. And I think that's where creativity lives. And I do follow my gut wherever it takes me. And of course, I do go through my brain and make these decisions. This makes sense. This doesn't make sense, or whatever. But following my gut, that's how I discovered a main character who doesn't speak, or a guy who comes back from the dead, or those types of things. And I love that. And I do give myself permission to explore, but I never take my eye off the purpose, right? The ending. When I start a novel, I know where I want to start and where I want to go. And all these little roads I take in the middle, I give the meandering. I give myself permission, but I always try to go back. And that's the purpose. And I think it came about in The Murmur of Bees.
You know, many books today are explored through their audio versions. Do you perceive a certain difference in the way the books are received, understood, and eventually and hopefully loved in reference to their manners of reaching the reader?
Well, I do love audiobooks. I have to say that audiobooks give us more time to read. So I really love that. And I think we can reach out to more readers this way, because there are readers in potential readers who don't go into reading because they have some difficulty. And it's not only visual difficulty in itself, but concentrating through this eyesight, and they never go into reading, and they say, no, reading, it's very boring. But then they're more leaning into listening. And it's a discovery for them, going into audiobooks. And I think we have to take advantage of every type of reading. I always say I am a very opportunistic reader. I take the opportunity to read anywhere. So if I'm out of the house, maybe an audiobook or a Kindle or whatever, it doesn't matter to me. Reading is reading. But audiobooks, they do give dimension to the reading, to the novel, if it's done right. I love a very, very well done audiobook, and I do think they drive you to different or they can to different profundity, different places, because if the narrator is a very good actor, he or she can convey a lot of emotion that maybe if you're not concentrating very well during the reading, you might miss. So it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. And it's also delivery by another artist, an interpretation. I find that fascinating. And I love audiobooks too, because it's the oldest type of reading, actually. When there was only one book, or there was only this people who knew all these stories, and they went town to town and they told the stories.
Absolutely. Or word to mouth, yes.
So it feels like very modern, but I realize it's not. It's going back to the roots of literature, and I love that.
Well, in my opinion, your novel is also about childhood, its innocence, but also the way we part from this blessed period in one's life. Looking around the world in times of war and pandemic, just like in your book, what lesson should we emphasize to our children? Well,
to our children, family is first, absolutely. But I want to talk more about what should we tell historians.
Okay.
And it's very important, I think, because right now what we're looking in Ukraine, okay, we can see it. We're witnesses to it. But if we connect with history, we realize that we have never taken a good look at childhood in times of strife. We don't take them into consideration. We don't take women into consideration. And that's what I wrote from that perspective. I wanted to tell the story. It's, okay, there's war. War is very important. But see what war feels like when you're a child, what war feels like when you're a woman, and you will never be in the history books. But still, war leaves a mark, right? And so I wanted to tell childhood and also old age and womanhood from in a history that never looks at them, right? And so this is a very, very close look at childhood, and that's something I'm very interested in. Also in Tears of Amber, Peregrinos, it's childhood. Everything is childhood, because at the end, if we like literature and we like being told stories, we like to be told the beginning, right? And that's also what we can tell children. You might be a child, but every day counts. Every day counts to have a wonderful youth or a wonderful adult life or whatever. Every day counts. And that's what I found when writing my novels, is that, okay, you might be a child, but you deserve to be counted. You deserve your story to be told. You deserve to feel that every day counts, because every day makes you who you're going to be.
Now, thank you for pointing this out. Indeed, history is made out of everybody, men, women, children included. We are all alike, and we are all part of it. And in the end, it is us, this whole that we're talking about, that creates history in the making. Absolutely.
Exactly. And you know what? Women are never told in the history books. And that's why I find it's so easy to make them the victims in a situation of war. That's what history doesn't really look closely at. What happens to women as victims, but then also women as the ones that are left when everything is done, when a country is broken in little pieces, women as the ones, the actors that pick up the pieces and make a country go forth, right? Tell the little traditions to the next generation, make sure that next generation exists to continue the story of a country, right? And so we never look at women very much. That's changing, I think. But in this story, I write about these different aspects of women, because it's both the victim and the one who is left behind, the one who takes care of everyday life, the breakfast, the cleaning of your ears or whatever. But at the end is left with the job of picking up the pieces and continuing the story, right? And we should look at that, and we should ask historians to not finish a history of a war when the peace treaty is signed. Mm-hmm. War does not end right there. It ends when the routine can come back again in the hands of women. So I find that very interesting. I find that very important. And I think it would change the way we tell the histories of our country. I don't know the story of the history of Romania very well, but here in Mexico, we tell our history more or less in these words. We come from men, strong men, tenacious men. and I have never known a case of a man creating babies, right, on their own.
Yeah. All by himself, yes.
So we have to start to change the narrative, and that's why I want what I want to do here. Mexican history is told from a very
point of view, primarily, yes,
gender-centric point of view. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if you were to ascribe a color to your novel, The Murmur of the Bees, what would it be?
Well, it would be two, green and orange, because those are the colors that saved so many lives in Linares, and saved the land too, because when they planted the orange trees, they were able to keep at least some of their land.
Smell?
It's very symbolic.
A smell?
As what?
A smell, a certain smell?
Oh, orange blossom, absolutely. It's a flower.
Definitely.
Of course, it's a flower, and you might say it's just ephemeral, but no, when it's in bloom, it's overpowering.
Yes,
and
indeed.
I do think smells get into us, right?
Absolutely, and it triggers memory instantly.
Yes, and that's why I like to write. My descriptions are more from the senses than from really actual descriptions. This list of characteristics of a character or a place or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's more the senses, because I wanted to detonate imagination, not mine. I wrote that from my imagination, but from my senses. And I found that memories are very much rooted in the senses. And when I did this, I thought, I hope that it triggers memories in the reader. Not what I'm saying about this house or this person or this land or whatever, but what is the reader's. And I hope it did that. And I found that it has the memories of the reader's childhood in their grandmother's house, or the little farm where they lived when in their childhood. And that's what I found, that it really did work, and I love that.
A song to accompany your novel?
Well, the Simonopio songs, because I did go into that. I'm not sure I don't know how they translate into Romanian, but the song that Espiricueta sings is real. It exists, about the donkey taking the reins, right? And also these very, very romantic songs that Simonopio used to sing from Marilu Trevino. They are real too. And people can look them up in YouTube. They're beautiful. And they never got recorded until very recently, when the real Marilu Trevino went around to collect all these old songs from people who are incredibly old. And so she recovered them. It's part of history. And I think history should be looked in every aspect, even the musical aspect, right? So yeah, even that has its history right there.
Now, for the end of our interview, maybe a rather bizarre question. If you were to choose a voice, since we have been talking about voices that tell the stories, well, a voice to retell the story from The Murmur of the Bees, would it be a child's voice or an adult's voice?
The thing is, I believe an adult is never encapsulated. You have to go back to childhood. I cannot leave my childhood. So it's a strange answer, but what I've
The question is strange in itself.
Yeah, but I think I would actually, I have never lamented going to an old man telling this story, because he has the whole story. When he remembers it, right? When he remembers the whole, he has the whole story. And I love that he could convey what it felt like to be a child. And I think that we have to hold on to our childhood, really. I think, and I love that I never stopped being a reader. And I think this reading has become my bridge to this sensation of being a child. I remember how it felt like not to reach high places, or how it felt, or this wonderment, or whatever. So I think a child has a voice, but an older man has the whole story, and I love that. But still, he gives voice to his child, his inner child. And I thought that was good too. I would not change a thing. I'm sorry.
Okay, last question then. Since you're such a keen reader, what does it feel like reading your own novels?
Well, of course, I've had to do that because a lot, because I got invited to collaborate in the translation in English. And so it was a very special experience, because I got to look at my words really, really closely, and then see how they transformed and how they could translate into another language. And I don't mean word by word, but in the hands of a magnificent translator, that could translate the feelings. It was very beautiful to see, and to see that, okay, it's black and white, it's a word printed in a book, but really look where literature can take us, right? It's the best bridge we have in humanity to understand each other and to feel each other. We have an expression in Spanish that goes, you have to talk to understand each other. And I go further and say, when we read each other, we feel each other. And that's true. And so it's been a very beautiful experience. I don't have those hang-ups that, I don't like to read myself again. No, I really like to see and to remember in what moment I was when I was writing that, what was happening, because that's also very important. And so a part of my history, my present history or contemporaneous history, is written in that novel too, with the words I was writing. When I wrote that the family, for example, I wrote that the family was sending their daughters to away to be interns in a school, I was writing the reality that was going on in real life, in present time in Monterrey, because we were going through a very difficult, violent patch with the drug war that was going on here. And people were saying, I'm going to send my kids away to school. And it was happening. And so it's very interesting to me to see that and say, okay, it's the past, but it's also my present. It's what was going through my mind and what was hurting me in that very precise moment that I also wrote. And that's why it also moved me to write a story about remembering, the importance of remembering, right? And the absolute reason to forget, which is war hurts, violence hurts. There are things that we wish we could forget, and we do. but we should remember. And that's what was going on in my life. So it's interesting to me to read that. And I hope to never forget that.
Sofia Segovia, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Marius, and congratulations on the anniversary. And I just want to say to all the readers, I hope you enjoy The Murmur of Peace, and I hope it transports you very, very far away to other lives, other times, other lands.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.